Hello, and welcome to Salem Witch Trials Daily. I'm Josh Hutchinson.
Hi, I'm Sarah Jack. Today we're looking beyond the borders of New England to answer a critical question. Was the witch panic in America a homegrown phenomenon, or was it influenced from the outside?
We often think of the early American colonies as isolated settlements on the edge of a dangerous frontier. But the truth is, the Atlantic Ocean was an information superhighway. Ideas, laws, and panic traveled on ships.
Transatlantic communication, specifically the distribution of books, pamphlets, and letters, played a definitive role in shaping how witch trials were conducted in America.
Let's go back to the first wave of trials in the mid 1600s. We know that the witch hunts in Connecticut and Massachusetts in the late 1640s coincided with the rise of Matthew Hopkins, the self proclaimed Witchfinder General in England.
News of Hopkins' ruthless methods in East Anglia crossed the Atlantic and landed directly on the desks of colonial magistrates. Historians that we've spoken with believe that the leaders of Connecticut were actually reading Hopkins' book, The Discovery of Witches, and conducting prosecutions with his book practically in hand.
We see the physical evidence of this communication in the legal procedures. For example, the technique of watching, keeping a suspect awake and under constant observation to see if a familiar spirit appears, was a hallmark of the English trials. Yet we see this exact method used on Margaret Jones in Boston in 1648 and in Springfield, Massachusetts.
It shows they weren't just making it up as they went along. They were following a playbook mailed to them from home.
This is where the transatlantic connection gets really fascinating. By 1692, New England's accused witches were accused of harming a neighbor's cow or making a child sick. They weren't typically flying through the air to massive parties with the devil until Salem. And then they had these sabbats, and they did fly on poles. The introduction of flight came because of a book. The Reverend Cotton Mather, a voracious reader and writer, had read accounts of the great noise, the massive witch hunt in Sweden in 1669, and he included these in his books. The information on the Swedish afflicted children and the behavior of the supposed witches who flew to the sabbat on Blockula. Now they're flying to sabbats in Salem Village, in Andover, in New England. Mather incorporated these accounts into his own writings, likely pulling from Joseph Glanvill's English book, Sadducismus Triumphatus. This literature introduced New Englanders to the idea of witches flying on poles and attending a satanic Sabbath.
The symptoms and confessions in Salem were largely shaped by the media the colonists were consuming. They were describing what they had read or heard about from Europe, and the panic echoed back across the ocean.
That's a great point. Cotton Mather's book, Wonders of the Invisible World, which detailed the Salem trials, traveled back to Scotland. We know that in the Bargaran witch trials of 1697, the family of the afflicted girl, Christian Shaw, had read Mather's accounts.
Consequently, Christian Shaw's symptoms in Scotland began to mirror the symptoms of the girls in Salem.
It really was an information revolution. The printing of the Malleus Maleficarum centuries earlier had standardized the concept of the witch across Europe. And by the late 17th century, New England had a highly literate populace. They had to be literate to read the Bible. And they had bought into this library of books on witchcraft.
So when we look at Salem, we aren't just looking at an isolated and local dispute. We're looking at the result of global exchange of folklore, theology, and fear.
Stick with us on Salem Witch Trials Daily. Tomorrow we talk about the use of folk magic in New England colonies.